Hello.
Can you hear me? Rajeev ji, can you
Yes.
hear me?
Yeah, I was muted. I've just been unmuted. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Yes.
Okay. Okay, wonderful to be here.
Namaste. I'm so excited to have you.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yes. So Rajeev ji, you don't need any introduction. You have been the pioneer and you're an institution for us, but I will do a brief introduction. Rajeev Malhotra ji, I think to me, you're a lone ranger. Our keynote speaker today. That's how I got into this, India, Indology undermines our realities. Ideas you've presented with your thought process. And you have really helped us understand this game of perception and current frameworks. Your books like Being Different, Breaking India, Sanskrit Non-Translate, what's going on. Without taking much time, I want to introduce your topic today, which is Indology, past, present, and future. And I will hand over the floor to you, Rajeev ji, to take this away. Thank you so much for guiding us.
Namaste. Thank you for inviting me. And thanks to all the viewers and listeners. It's a very important day. This is the day 9/11 in 1893 when Swami Vivekananda made his important address in Chicago. There are many 9/11 anniversaries. It's also, of course, the 9/11 when the Taliban, when the Al Qaeda attacked the United States. And today is a very opposite kind of 9/11 in the war on terrorism because the United States folded it up and disappeared. And the Taliban is swearing in their cabinet today. So this is a very interesting complicated combination of anniversaries. It's also the day that some people have chosen to attack Hindu Dharma. Dismantling Hindutva, which is in the eyes of most Americans, has got no difference between Hindutva, Hindu. And so when that topic is very cleverly chosen, so they can say we are not attacking a religion, we are attacking Hindutva as if they are inseparable. But for all practical purposes, as far as the audience is concerned, they're just wanting to dismantle Hinduism. Now, I want to do a meta-level analysis because my forte is to develop frameworks, not to focus on one episode. This episode is one, not the only one, but many others like this have happened. Many others like this will happen. So I want to give you a framework with a historical perspective, what is happening today and what's going to happen in the future as I can see. A meta-level analysis. Now, before you talk about Hinduphobia, you have to understand the lens through which we are being studied. And the lens, the drishti through which we are being studied results in a portrayal, depiction, a biased depiction, which we are calling Hinduphobia. But we must understand the origin of this. Hinduphobia is a lens, a certain way of thinking. Now, in our tradition, this is called Siddhant. Siddhant is the worldview, what certain people would consider their established worldview, their established set of theories, frameworks, the logic by which they can argue. That is their Siddhant. So they all teach each other, have a common Siddhant, and then they go around fighting intellectually with other people taking their Siddhant. So there could be a Advaita Vedanta, certain school Siddhant, and there could be in our tradition, there could be a Buddhist Madhyamika Siddhant, like that. There are different Siddhants. In the West, it is called critical theory. It is called literary theory. Those are the terms for the Western Siddhant. So it's a battle of Siddhant. Now, the thing that has happened for a few hundred years, and these are not terms I'm coining, I'm using established terms in a new way. So one term that you should know is atrocity literature. Atrocity literature was a kind of literature developed about Native Americans to justify genociding them. That they are bad people, they are cannibals, they are bad to their women, they are primitive. Then when it was discovered that California, Nevada, New Mexico, Texas, which were part of Mexico, they were not part of the United States, but it was discovered they got oil, they got gold, so it was very important to attack them and capture those territories. So a lot of atrocity literature was developed about Mexicans. The Mexicans are drunk people, they're lazy people, they're sort of bad characters, so it's okay to invade them. And this went on and on. When the US developed its Navy, the first major attack was on Philippines, far away across the Pacific, a country that had never harmed. There was no provocation, there was no logic, but there was atrocity literature to justify that we can do this to them. So atrocity literature dehumanizes certain people. It makes them look like they are not worthy of normal, they're not like normal people, and it's better to get rid of them. So this is how Hinduphobia has been developed and is being institutionalized. It is being institutionalized. I'll go through some of the institutions where it's there. It's in the academy, in the media, in various think tanks, in seminaries. It's in government policy making. They want to make laws based on it, and so on. So the atrocity literature turns, in this case, is Hinduphobia. That's the name given for this atrocity literature. The term Hinduphobia was very old, but I'm using it. I started using it in the 1980s for our era. The way it's being utilized by the way the lens is being utilized by today's people in the academy. So it's a fresh idea using an old name in order to show what is going on today, not what was going on in the past. When they say dismantle Hinduism, it's a call for genocide, because when you develop, when historically in the American unconscious, when you develop atrocity literature against a people, and then you say we can dismantle them, it's a subtle call that you can eradicate these people. Because how do you dismantle Hinduism without dismantling Hindus? What do? You have to dismantle Hindus. So either Hindus have to convert, be embarrassed that they are Hindus, they have to run away, they have to say, oh no, we are not Hindus, or they have to become the target of a lot of attack. So this is very vicious. You must understand in the American context, if you understand Hinduphobia as a case of atrocity literature, and then you go and look at what was atrocity literature, what has been the story of atrocity literature, the history, and how atrocity literature always resulted in genocide. It always resulted in attack and persecution of people. So when you understand that, then you can realize that this call for dismantling Hinduism is a call for genocide. That's how serious the matter is. So you have to explain it in that way when people say, well, why does it matter? Now, this study of India as Indology it has developed a lot of toolkits. There used to be the British study, German study of Indology, French study, Russian Indology. There were Indologies in different parts of Europe, different from each other, competing. And then there was American Orientalism studies. It came to the United States, became American Oriental studies. Now, all of this was based on Videshi Siddhanta, not Swadeshi Siddhanta, but their way of looking at it. So the way we have to begin is understand what are the different toolkits in this Videshi Siddhanta called critical theory. What is its history? Where are things today? And where are they likely to go in the future? And then only you can plan, what we should do about it. So let me just tell you, pre-independence, the Siddhanta, the Western worldview, the Western lens about us is mostly a biblical lens. They're looking at it from a Christian point of view. And they're looking at it as colonialists, mercantile, traders wanting to trade with the culture. They're also very impressed. They're very impressed. And there's a lot of scholarship on how great the Hindus are, their grammar, their Sanskrit language, all that kind of stuff also goes. And then after independence, the whole game changes. After independence comes the arrival of Marxism into India. Marxism existed in Europe 100, 200 years ago, but Marxism was not something prevalent among the Indians. There were Marxist revolutions in other places, like we know in Russia and so on. But Marxism comes to India as a kind of Siddhant, imported Siddhant, and Indians adopt it. CPM, CPI, these kind of people, they adopt it. And during the Indira Gandhi era, when she needed support from the CPI, CPM for coalition government, they took control over the education ministry. And they decided that they'll bring their Marxism into the education system, right from the universities on. And that has never gone away. That kabza, that control still remains. Then came post-colonial studies, started by an American at Columbia University, actually, Edward Said, who wrote the first major book. And this launched the era of post-colonial studies. New Siddhant, based on Marxism, but developed further. So this Siddhant basically says that we should look at, from the point of view of the colonized people, we should give them sympathy, and we should look at critique the colonizer. Now, it's very good for us. In fact, I got so much knowledge studying post-colonial authors. I studied them. I still study them. And so should you, because you will get a lot of information. They work very hard, and they dug up a lot of material about the colonial mischief that was going on. They are the ones who looked at what was going on in the 1800s, how we were being distorted. They are the ones who exposed all this. So I give credit to the post-colonial people. Although they are Marxists, but they did a pretty good job. And our people didn't dig up that much. Post-colonial scholars did a good job digging up the colonial past. But what happened is, post-colonial studies suddenly switched into subaltern studies. Now it became mischievous. That's the beginning of mischief. Because what happened is they said, subaltern are people in your own country, not Videshi. Don't blame them. Subaltern are the people in our own country who are being exploited by the upper caste. There are the elites who make the discourse, who write the history, who make the rules. And then there are the subaltern people. Subaltern people are those who don't have a voice. They don't have a voice. They don't have power. And so that became the fashionable study. So from Marxism, it went to post-colonial studies. From post-colonial studies, it went to subaltern studies. And this was a big thing going on. Ramachandra Guha, one of the pioneers, Partha Chatterjee from Chicago, he's now in Columbia, one of the pioneers. A lot of Indians adopted this European theory. It was a European theory. It was not something invented in India. India imported Marxism as a Siddhanta. India imported post-colonial studies as a Siddhanta. India imported this subaltern studies as a Siddhanta. This became the Siddhanta of the left. So the left is now become the franchise. They're franchising. They're like spreading this knowledge in India as a kind of franchise being given to them by Europeans and Americans. And they are being patronized by Europeans and Americans. They are being touted as, the important people who are taken around, wined and dined, given a lot of money, funding, all this Ford Foundation and these different kind of Western foundations and, funding sources helping them. And some of the bright ones would be given jobs here in the academy. So like right here in Princeton, we have Gyan Prakash, a very senior guy in his 70s now, but came as a dynamic, trained by Ramila Thapar. So a lot of these people were trained by Irfan Habib, Ramila Thapar, these kind of people. And they trained several hundred PhDs and they sent them all over the world to take the Indianized version of subaltern studies, which problematizes the plight of minorities, Dalits, women, things like that. So subaltern studies is a dangerous thing because it tends to break up a country. Subaltern studies is sort of, you can say, a whole galvanization, a whole mobilization of breaking India forces. That's when it starts. So human rights is the popular, in the common vernacular, these people say they're championing human rights. And so they get to decide who's the victim and who's the perpetrator, who's the abuser and who's being abused. So they went around building a lot of atrocity literature to make their case. Anthropologists, social scientists, history being written like that, new political thought. So none of this is theory indigenous to India. It is not Swadeshi Siddhant. It is all Videshi Siddhant brought in to do this work. And our side were sleeping, quite honestly, sleeping. Even today, even in conferences like this, many of our thinkers do not think beyond Marxism. Their knowledge of the left is limited to Marxism. They think left equals Marxism. They need to know Marxism is Purani Baat. That is fine. But Marxism has also evolved into post-colonial studies, into subaltern studies. And then beyond subaltern studies, the next thing was called postmodernism. Postmodernism was brought in Freudian psychoanalysis, which means that what you are saying is not to be taken at face value because there is an unconscious part of you which has certain meaning, certain agenda. So my job as a scholar has to be to Freudian psychoanalyze you as the author, you as the speaker. So now they started psychoanalyzing Sri Krishna. What did he really mean, even though he said something? What did Ramchandra mean when he said something? What did Paramahansa Yogananda mean? What does Vivekananda mean? What does Sri Ramakrishna mean? So they're deconstructing, it's called deconstruction, meaning you read between the lines. You go to what is beneath the surface. On the surface, it says something, but that's not what it means. Hidden inside the surface, underneath the surface, there is a deeper meaning, and you got to be a specialist in Freudian psychoanalysis. So this Freudian psychoanalysis is a foreign Siddhant, a theoretical framework to analyze the unconscious motives behind a person. And only these guys who are trained by the academy, certified, they're allowed to do it. I'm not allowed to do it. Of course, I did Freudian psychoanalysis of Wendy Doniger. I did Freudian psychoanalysis of all these people. I reversed the gaze. I did Purva Paksha on them, sometimes using their own Siddhanta on them. Saying, okay, if you were to do an analysis using Freudian psychoanalysis on you guys, this is what you look like. And they don't know how to answer because nobody ever did it to them before. So this game has been going on. Now the human rights became known as social justice, a big movement called social justice movement. So postmodernism, besides Freudian psychoanalysis, it adopted feminism. So many different kind of theories, Freudian and feminism being two examples, but many others brought together to deconstruct a text. How do you deconstruct a text? Deeper than what the text seems to be saying. So Ramayana is not to be taken as what we think Valmiki said. Valmiki is dead. They have a slogan called "The author is dead." So who cares about the author? He's dead. If he's dead, we don't know. We can't really verify what he meant. So we have to figure out what he really meant. And so what he meant in those days was a very male chauvinist view. That kind of thing. So this postmodernism is a very dangerous way to write, to study somebody's texts, somebody's shastras, because it does not respect at all what was the original meaning. It says the original meaning we don't know because the author is dead. Who knows? But we have to figure out what he might have meant, and that is what we have to go with. So whenever they are trying to psychoanalyze me or psychoanalyze you or psychoanalyze today's Hindutva, they will infer some meaning which is not even true. But they will infer a meaning because they think they have the right to do so. the postmodernist scholar thinks he has the adhikar to analyze the motives of people without having met them. So they're analyzing the motives of Vivekanand and analyzing the motives of Ramakrishna without ever having met them, just assuming what they might have been like. And they're psychoanalyzing deities. They're psychoanalyzing Ganesha. They're psychoanalyzing Shiva. So this is what this postmodernism has turned into. Now, after that comes Neo-Orientalism. Neo-Orientalism is now one of the latest Siddhantas. You see, until then, what happened is the left did not know Sanskrit. They were not understanding Sanskrit. They were not bothered to study Sanskrit because they thought that Sanskrit is old-fashioned. Who wants to study Shastras? Shastras and religion is the opium of the masses. Marx dismissed religion and said that you don't need to bother. You just need to create a new revolution, but you don't need to understand religion. It's obsolete. As people get educated, they will not be religious. That's what he said. But what they discovered in recent times is that people are very religious, and it has nothing to do with whether they're educated or not. They are very religious all over the world. Even after the fall of the Soviet Empire, Russians are very Christian. After the demise of the communist people in Cuba, they're very religious. So this is true. They could not eradicate it. So then they decided that they should start studying Sanskrit and start reinterpreting Shastra from a postmodernist lens. So rather than ignoring the Shastra, study the Shastra, give it a new meaning. So this is the school of Neo-Orientalism started by some people in Colombia like Sheldon Pollock and various others that I've criticized and I've written about them. And this Neo-Orientalism means that now the left is learning Sanskrit. So guess what? In Columbia University, where they're teaching Sanskrit and they're giving postdoctoral, bringing in advanced people to give them PhDs, they bring them from left-wing places like JNU and Ashoka University and places like that. They bring people that have been turned into very strong leftists. And then when they come here, they are taught Sanskrit and how to reinterpret the Shastra in a leftist way. So they will say Shastra is so great, Sanskrit is so great. But if you read between the lines what they are saying, it is actually very poisonous. Their interpretation is very poisonous, even when they want to praise it, because they want to praise it as great thinking by great people. But these are the flaws. These are the bad motives inside it. So you cannot take at face value just because they seem to be nice guys. These new Sanskrit walas in the American Academy and in Europe and other places are actually very dangerous for our tradition, because they know how to talk to us in a way that we feel very impressed. They can give shlokas, they can stand there, give a bhajan. They're trained. That is part of the training. But the meaning they're getting is very different. Now, this lens, I'm talking about the history of this lens. Recently, as a result of the Black Lives Matter movement, there is now something called critical race theory. And our people don't know how to interpret it. All our people know is that critical race theory, which is a theory that there is racism, is now being applied to India. Caste is race, and all this whole history of caste is a history of racism. And the Dalits are basically like the blacks in America, and the non-Dalits are like the whites in America. So the whole history of white persecution and oppression of blacks in America can be applied to India using the caste lens. This is dangerous stuff. And this is what's happened. So this, our people, you see, we have not done Purva Paksha on them, which is what we're supposed to be doing. Our gurus have not encouraged Purva Paksha of non-Indian thought. The government hasn't. HRD ministry hasn't. The culture ministry hasn't. So Sangh doesn't have the wherewithal to do this kind of Purva Paksha. They can quote a little bit here, make a slogan, talk, superficial talk. But to do Purva Paksha requires a lot of study. To do Purva Paksha of post-colonial work, it requires dozens of works that are out there. You got to work very hard. You got to read a lot. You have to be a studious person. You have to be a person who gets up and wants to study all this stuff. To do Purva Paksha of Neo-Orientalism, a lot of work. To do Purva Paksha of postmodernism, a lot of work. Each of the lenses in this journey of Siddhant being evolved against us, the Western Siddhant developing more and more ideas and more lenses to study us. At each stage, there is a library of works, huge, very prolific, compared to anything we produce. And they are very innovative. They're bringing in young people who are good at English, who are very articulate, very slick, bring them into this and make it look like they're helping their own culture by criticizing it, by dismantling all the abuses. They're going to be helping their culture. So this business of dismantling Hinduism only now became public, but it has been going on for a very long time. And since I don't like when people go back to blame everything to, some British Macaulay did this and so did that. Point is, things have changed. And you have to critique the people after independence. You have to critique these new Indology fashions that have come after independence, the different Videshi theories, Videshi Siddhanta that have come, 5 or 6 of different generations of new things that have come, that you have to understand. You must understand what the claim is. Where are the strengths? Because there are a lot of strengths in what they're saying. You have to understand that. In order to defeat it, you got to first understand it. And you got to understand who are the players, why are they writing all this, who funds them, what is the agenda, how one school of thought is different from the previous school of thought. You have to understand. How is subaltern studies different from post-colonial? How is post-colonial different from Marxism? It is enhanced. It is enhanced, updated, upgraded, and turned into something newer and better and more vicious. So you have to understand all of that. And this requires a large body of people who are very well read. And we do not have that. So that's a serious problem. Now, I want to talk about how all of this has become institutionalized. There is a whole ecosystem. So, for example, in the United States, this kind of thinking I just told you about is very well established in South Asian studies, in literary theory, in English literature theory departments, history departments, anthropology departments, social sciences departments, political science departments. These are the things being taught. And this has been also exported to the liberal arts in India. So when the new education policy says we're going to bring liberal arts into India, what liberal arts will they bring? This is the liberal arts they will bring, because this is where all the books are written, professors are trained, so they will bring all this Western Siddhanta, which is very dangerous to us, and they'll put it in IITs and IIMs and whatever. This is going to be very dangerous. So to bring liberal arts into India at this point is a bad idea in the NEP, the new education policy. First, they have to fund people who will do a rebuttal of the liberal arts of the America and the Europe, who will do a Purva Paksha and tell you what is right, what is wrong, and who will create our own social theory, our own humanities, our own liberal arts according to our Siddhanta. So we need to update our Siddhanta for today. That has not happened. And until you do that, you do not have the faculty, you do not have the teaching material, you do not have the textbooks. If you start a course without all this, then you will use the Videshi Siddhanta, Videshi liberal arts, very, very dangerous. So then every IIT will become like another JNU. This is very serious, and don't think the NEP is going to help us. It will actually, maybe in some areas it's very good, but as far as liberal arts is concerned, it is very dangerous. Now, besides these institutions of universities, there is also a lot of this knowledge being developed in seminaries. United States has over 325 seminaries, Christian seminaries. They're like think tanks, and they train priests. The combined student population is close to 100,000. Then there are Islamic groups. This latest conference was sponsored by Islamic group. Muslims in Indian Muslims in America, they sponsored this. Very open on their websites. They are the main sponsor of all this. Then there are many foundations and funding sources. This Ford Foundation is the big one, but there are 20, 30 foundations here doing this work. Then there are think tanks. There are liberal left-wing think tanks, democratic. There are right-wing Christian right-wing think tanks, and they also study. When they study, they look at use these Western ways of studying us, and not our own ways of studying ourselves. It is not our Siddhanta that they use, but their own theories, left-wing theories, right-wing theories. And then there's media. I mean, you have the liberal left-wing media here. You got BBC. It is so atrocious, and it's getting worse. The amount of lies, the amount of blatant bias, how they'll silence somebody that they don't agree with, how they promote somebody just because he's saying the right things from their point of view. This has become very serious. Then there is the U.S. government. U.S. government relies on something called U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom. This is Bill Clinton signed this into law as a new act of Congress. And in this new act, it was decided that a new surveillance mechanism will be set up in Washington. I visited them. I have talked to their commissioners. There isn't any practicing Hindus among their commissioners. There are Muslims. There are 1 or 2 Buddhists, but mostly they are Jews and Christians. And they are studying the whole world of religious prejudice, where religious freedom is being denied. And they're studying all over the world except United States. They don't study United States problems. They study problems elsewhere. And there's always a big section on South Asia, which kind of condemns India and says India mein ye hua, some nun got raped here, this violence happened there. They're always accusing Hindus for creating religious violence and denying religious freedom. And this report goes to the US Congress, which can be turned into policies and bills, and it also goes to the White House. And there's a lot of power and clout because this comes from the US government. This US government tappa on it. So I don't know any one of our people who've actually gone inside the US Commission on Religious Freedom and argued with them face to face. I have corresponded with them. I've given them my rebuttal, and I've gone alone. I mean, there's nobody else coming with me. So, I do what I do as much as I can, good or bad, to the best of my abilities. I thought I should at least give them my mind. I should tell them what is wrong about it. And I found that the person in charge of producing the report on religious intolerance and problems of religious freedom in South Asia is a Pakistani young man. He got his PhD in American University, which is in Washington. He got a PhD on religious violence in South Asia. That was his dissertation. And he got this job as the scholar who puts it together. And then he hires people in India, which is a secret source. They will not tell me who the sources are. People who supply them with information. I asked him, have you ever been to India? Have you seen these things? He said, no, but we've hired other people who will supply us. And I said, who are those people? I want to examine them. He said, we can't tell you, secret, confidential. So a lot of this material being gathered by Indian sepoys, being sent to such places in the West, whether it is a government, whether it is a private think tank, whether it is a seminary, whether it is a university, this is how the game is being played. A lot of atrocity literature is being developed, and this atrocity literature is very dangerous. And what you are now facing in this latest conference here and there, I'm very glad it created a big stir. It unified our people, it awakened them, but this is nothing new. This has been going on for a long time, and now it is reaching a higher level. It is reaching a level where they are mobilizing on a bigger scale and more publicly and more blatantly. So that's what's different. Now, I will tell you that there is a global alliance between the left and Islamic people. They will, when they problematize human rights, they will not criticize, Islam's treatment of women. They will not. They will not say, okay, when you push them into a burqa, you denying them their freedom. They will not. Feminists don't bother that too much. They will, some of them will, but most of the leftist people leave Islam alone. And this coalition between the left and Islam happened in order to fight Israel. So it happened in the Palestine movement. This Palestine movement to fight against the Israel, this was funded by a lot of Islamic countries, and they funded the leftists. They bought off the leftists. So this the left became sympathetic towards Islam for the last 2 generations of scholars, today's scholars and their mentors. And this is now being weaponized against India. The left sympathy for Islam is now being weaponized for India, fighting against the Kashmir position of India, fighting against, you will see when the Taliban spreads and expands, the left is actually going to be supporting them. In fact, it's very interesting that Twitter never blocked a single account of Taliban, not a single account. YouTube has no ban on Taliban. They can say whatever the heck they want to. But if a Hindu gives a response, he will be told you're chauvinist, you are this and that. So the left is also, this left, which includes the Islamic influence, dominates media. Large part of media is dominated in the Western world by such people. And also businesses like Cisco. Cisco has introduced some caste policy. You see, caste policy. So now this kind of activism is getting into the corporate world, which is quite dangerous. Our industrialists are not bothered. They don't know, or they don't want to know. When I've gone and given briefings to some of these billionaires, they say, look, I'm not going to get rattled. Privately, I support you. I'm a Hindu, but I don't want to be named. In fact, when I wrote my recent book on artificial intelligence, where I showed that algorithms are being weaponized by these same people. Algorithms are being weaponized using machine learning to have a critical race theory as part of it, and to look for troublemakers and who are the Hindu fascists and saffron and ban them and all that. This is being done by algorithms. It's not humanly possible to keep track of so many millions and billions of videos going on and tweets going on. This is all being done by algorithms. When I explained to them the mischief being done by algorithms against our own heritage, actually, I was invited by some Silicon Valley very rich people for a closed door discussion. They were very concerned. They wanted to understand my point of view. I thought they'd support me. They wanted it off camera, no recording. And so that's what we did. 25 people at a time, several such sessions we had, many, many hours long each. Basically, what I learned from it is they're very selfish. They basically want to look after their own interest. They don't want to stick their neck out for Bharat. They are worried about what will it do for my investment, and will it affect me when I go for venture funding, and when I go public, will they brand me? They're worrying about that. And when they go to India, these guys, they want to be in the good books of the government, and they will pretend that they are these very patriotic people. When there is a dignitary from India coming, they'll all go write a lot of checks and get into the banquet and have their selfies. And so the same people are double-faced. When they are with the Hindu type people in India, especially, they want to show something. But look at this recent event that has happened, this whole dismantling Hindutva conference. Not a single big industrialist has spoken against it. I have gone to several of them. I have talked to several of them. I have called up and said, please make a statement. You have so much clout. They'll say, you're doing good work. Shabash, we're proud of you. Aap kijiye. Mera naam mat bole. Don't mention my name. This is what's going on. Whether it is industrialists in Bombay, whether it is industrialists in Bangalore, whether it is Indian industrialists in Silicon Valley, it's the same situation. So we have this whole atrocity literature has so much scared everybody that people who ought to be supporting us are not willing to do it publicly. They will at best do it privately. And then their children who are being raised in these South Asian studies are openly hostile. Lot of my friends, their children, the parents celebrate Diwali, they have pujas, they do all of that stuff. The kids will come and be respectful of the parents. But the kids' ideology is that, hey, you know, we are a caste abusive society. And they're quoting whatever the left and whatever the Hindu phobic people have trained them, because those are the professors that they studied with. So this is a very serious issue. Now, just in passing, I will tell you, there is also Indology in Pakistan. I call it Pakistani Indology. They have a different name for it. Pakistani Indology says that Pakistan is 5,000 years old. Pakistan started in Harappa and in Mohenjo-daro 5,000 years ago. And then all of the things that happened in what is today Pakistani territory, Nalanda, I mean, not Nalanda, but Takshashila, all these great things that happened there, they consider it to be part of their heritage. But because there was caste abuse, it had to be toppled, and Islam comes and helps liberate the society from Brahmins and Kshatriyas. And so it's a very interesting theory of Pakistan as a civilization that has gone through so much change over 5,000 years. It has upgraded itself by getting rid of this Hindu problem. That is the Pakistani Indology. There is also Chinese Indology. Chinese Indology is very interesting. They are pro Buddhism, but then their own Confucian thought, which is very nationalistic, supersedes. Buddhist thought is very good at a certain level, but today's government is Confucian communist capitalist. Confucian communist capitalist combination. Okay, that's the Chinese history of their own ideology and their own political thought. The Hindu response, and then I will like to have questions. The Hindu response is inadequate. It is certainly better than 30 years ago, because 30 years ago, I did not have access to so many people supporting me. I would keep making phone calls. I would call gurus, they would not interested. I would call some Sangh person, they're not interested. Indian embassy, consulate, not interested. They'd say, "Nare bhaiya, hum to nahi karenge, controversial hai." Many Hindu temples in USA refused to allow me to come and speak, even when I was invited by local people, because they said he'll say something controversial. We don't want to criticize anybody. We can do our puja, we can talk about Upanishad, but we cannot listen to any kind of problem that he will talk about. So I was kind of blacklisted by even our own mandirs. The same mandir is now climbing up and down and saying, okay, let's, they're facing issues. But at that time, it was not so. Today things have changed. Today things have changed for the better, because there are lakhs of people who are thinking like you people are thinking. And I'm very happy that finally, even though I'm very old and I wish this had happened when I was young, I wanted to mobilize a big Kshatriya army, a big intellectual Kshatriya army, train them, teach them to think like this, teach them to develop new knowledge, write books, become very serious in terms of being able to do Purva Paksha and debate and all that. I wanted to train a large group of people. So, but there were no resources available. Not that many people were interested, and the VHP people not helping me. The Sangh people just talking a lot, but not wanting to really help. As individuals, very good. In their personal capacity, most Sangh people I met are extremely good. But I'm talking about as an institution. That is what matters, not what is in his heart and how he wants to help me as a person. That is different. If I ever need somebody on a personal basis to help me, I call one of these guys. They're very sweet, they're good-hearted, they're dharmic people, they're wonderful, and they'll be there. But as an organization and institution, if you need some clout, somebody powerful to help you, they're not going to do that. So this is the difficulty which we've had for a long time. But things are changing because of people like you putting pressure. Because people like you putting pressure on the gurus, people like you putting pressure on the Sangh people, on the Indian consulates and Indian culture people, and the Ministry of External Affairs. So many letters going, and it's going to put pressure on them. You should also add industrialists. The Hindu industrialists, you should add them. Where are they? They have so much power. Where are they? I mean, so we are beginning to kind of get organized. And a problem I see is that there is a difference I see between good scholarship, which is very deep, and activism, which is sort of quick. Activism is, you quickly do a video and become very popular, or you do make a speech somewhere, or go into Clubhouse or whatever. You can be activist without really being a scholar, because you know enough by hearsay, you've read enough here and there, and you are good at talking. But that is not going to be enough. You need deep thinkers who go deep into the text, who read a lot, both historical texts and current texts, and who can interpret it according to our Siddhanta and give a response to it. That's very important. Because it's not only a public tamasha going on, there is also a deep argument going on in serious places that we have to enter with our own Kshatriyas. We have to bring our intellectual Kshatriyas into the places where, the deepest most intense debates are going on, like we used to do in the past. They were not superficial people. They were not, when they were doing Purva Paksha against an opponent, it was not pop culture. It was not some tamasha to hit at him and make a scandal and make some remarks and comments. It was deep logic. We need to do that. That is very important. We have very few people who are even capable of doing that. So I will stop. This is an ongoing, this is a long project, and one could go on and talk for a long time. But I thank you for the opportunity to let me speak. And I'm grateful that there are people here who are helping. And I will turn the floor back to the moderator. And if there are questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Thank you, Rajeev ji. That was very, very enlightening, and you really covered, what the topic is, of